All right. So before we get into the podcast, I just want to drop on 2 quick ads and pay the bills. My name is Chio Dogu. I run a digital marketing agency based right here in the GTA. We do everything from helping clients launch podcasts, getting entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and speakers booked on podcasts as celebrity guests, creating lead generation campaigns for local businesses using Facebook ads, Instagram ads, LinkedIn ads, and YouTube ads. We also create landing pages and online funnels to help local businesses, entrepreneurs, and big businesses turn clicks into customers. If you're struggling to generate leads and grow your business, hit me up at info@odogwu.com, or you can get on my website at www.odogwu.com. That's www.odogwu.com. I'd love to hear from you guys. Let me know what you're thinking. And with that said, let's get on with the show. Hey guys, welcome to another exciting episode of the GTA Business Titans podcast. My guest today is Lauren Waldman. Lauren is the founder and lead consultant of The Learning Pirate. Her role at The Learning Pirate is to teach executives, entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and experts how to learn better using neuroscience and the natural advantages of the brain. She's a trainer, designer, facilitator, speaker, mentor, coach, and self-proclaimed pirate. She has over 16 years of diverse experience in every field of education. In addition to all that, Lauren is a certified training and development professional. She has a certificate in neuroscience from Harvard. She also has a certificate in medical neuroscience from Duke. She's a designated communications coach and trainer, and she's also on the advisory board of the National Communication Coaching and Association of Canada. So I'm pleased to have her on the show today to tell us a little bit about herself, her experience, her background, and of course, The Learning Pirate. So with that said, Lauren, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Chi. Wow, I mean, hearing you describe me is such a mouthful.
That's quite all right. It's well deserved. It's your background, it's your accolades and your success. So of course, everything has to be in your bio. It's who you are now.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. So Lauren, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got started as the Learning Pirate. Walk us through that biographical story of how you got to where you are today.
It's one of those stories of accident, how I got into this profession. I sort of I went through the typical Canadian school system, went to university. I was on course to be a writer. And my last year, when I was just about to graduate, a friend of mine had moved over to Japan to teach ESL. And this was when it was still really sort of relevant and hype to travel to different countries to teach.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I've never done that before. Why not? So I moved, when I was 19, I moved to Tokyo and was only planning on being there for a year. And I just fell in love not only with the country and the culture, but I discovered a love for teaching.
Okay.
So that's where it all started. And as my teaching career progressed, I started dealing more with business clients. I just realized that I wanted to take the business side of me, because I grew up in a very entrepreneurial family, and merge it with the teaching side. And when I finally came back to Canada, I became one of the trainers for teachers. So I brought that career full circle. And then I really decided, I didn't want to go into the school systems and be a conventional teacher. There's nothing wrong with it. It just wasn't for me. And so I said, okay, well, let's see what's out there. And that's when I saw, well, I can be an adult educator and I can be a designated trainer. And I started working towards that. And it's been, 16 years of accumulation of working literally all around the world. I've been very fortunate. And I'm really fortunate to have learned not only from educating myself, but I think the advantages you get from working across so many different industries in so many different countries really broadens the spectrum of how you approach someone's business from completely different sets of eyes. So fast forward a little bit more, and I had returned to Canada yet again because I was in and out of the country quite a bit working. And he was sitting at a very good position. I was the director of learning for a very well-known, Fortune company. And there was something missing.
Okay.
And I wasn't really sure what that something was. And I remember I had gone to the annual conference for training and development professionals here in Toronto. And that is where I met my mentor.
Okay.
And she blew me away because it was the first time I had heard anyone speaking on the topic of neuroscience in relation to learning.
Okay.
And from that moment on, it was, I think there was more than a light bulb that went off. It was like a whole light show. and I actually wound up quitting my job and decided that I understood that there is a value to understanding how the brain learns. And the only way that I could do that, was it necessary for me to quit my job? No. But was it necessary for me to go back and be the student again? Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's when I decided to go find some courses, and I found the fundamentals of neuroscience, which was being offered by Harvard. And it was so difficult. It was so incredibly difficult. And as my learning journey started is when I came to realize that I was going to become my best case study. I was going to become my own experiment of how I understand how the brain learns, because when the brain is taking something in that's new for the very first time, number one, it instantly resists.
Okay.
It instantly goes, no, thank you. I'm not interested in learning this. I'm comfortable with what I already know.
Mm-hmm.
And because I never had a science background, I had nothing to attach this new learning to. So within probably the first 3 months, there was a lot of times when, as a learner, I felt I was very much in over my head. I couldn't really grasp what the professors were trying to teach me. And it was a challenge to keep myself motivated to keep going. But I knew that there was value, 100%. Now it's interesting because I finally get to, things start flowing and I start understanding what's going on. And you fast forward almost a year later when I'm just at the end of the course and I'm hovering over my mouse because it was the last exam that I had to take and I was terrified that I was going to fail. And all of a sudden I see, you pass show up on my screen and this monster yar came out of my mouth. And I know it sounds a little ridiculous, but this whole pirate theme has followed me my entire life for some reason. And that word is, as people have gotten to know me, it's a word that I use quite often. And it was usually in agreement with something or my way of just, joining in conversation. But when it came out that day, and it came out so boisterous and loud, I literally sat on my couch and asked myself, I'm like, what does that mean? Like, why do you say that? What does that mean? And that's how the learning pirate came to life, because I sat there and had to think about what does that actually mean to me? I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, it's an acronym for me that stands for you are really ready. It was the moment that I'm like, oh my God, I know what I've learned. I'm confident. I can feel it. I am ready. I'm ready to go back and transfer this and to really elevate my career. That moment on, the learning pirate existed.
That's a very, very interesting and awesome story. And you shared a lot in there. So I want to start unpacking a few things. So before we get to the pirate journey, let's talk a little bit about neuroscience. Now, when somebody talks about neuroscience, you're thinking about, the brain science and maybe even neurochemistry, the chemical imbalances in the brain and whatnot. But when you said that when you were trying to learn neuroscience and you were getting resistance, that's the same thing that everybody goes through. If you get into college, one-on-one class, whatever it is, it's going to be very difficult, even though it's a one-on-one class. I faced the same challenges, even though I graduated 3 years later and I did okay. But whenever you step into a new class, you feel overwhelmed. You feel like, man, I don't know if I can make it. I don't know what is going on here. It sounds like Greek to me. But then you persevered and you persistent and you learn that, neuroscience has its own principle and the brain itself, before it takes something in, it has its own way of processing it. So walk us through that process of how neuroscience, what exactly it is, and then how does the brain adapt and learn and take in new information?
So I think the first place to start is to understand that, so neuroscience has been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's the evolution of it and the relevance that is really just coming to life in the last 2 decades.
Okay.
So, when we look back in time and history, neuroscience goes as far back as the Egyptian times. Only, the Egyptians, they didn't really care about the brain. They would pull it out and throw it away. They were more concerned about the heart. So we moved forward in history, and during times of evolution where people were then the thought thinkers of Aristotle, who then started asking those questions, and phrenology came into play. That's when people started really paying attention.
Okay.
Now, when we come into modern times, I think what's really important for listeners and for people to understand is that the neurosciences, as far as the science goes, it's still pretty new. And I'll give you this fact that might sort of put things in perspective for people. So it was, I believe, the 1992. So not too long ago. We're still going a couple decades back, but 1992 was the year the first fMRI machine was put into action. So that was the first year that we were actually able to scan the brain.
Okay.
So that really opened up, and there's so much going on in there. We're talking billions of connections. So that's really when it opened up to start looking very distinctly at the different parts of it and to really try to figure out what it does. So we're still in this evolution. Now, neuroscience, there's so many different aspects of neuroscience. You go, from my perspective, I focus in on the learning brain and the parts of which are engaged with that. But neuroscience is also being used to understand diseases like Alzheimer's, and Parkinson's disease. When there's injury, injury to one part of the brain, how does that affect that part of the body? And it's an amazing diagnostic tool that we really sort of underestimated for a long time. It's only 3 pounds that we carry around in our head, but it controls everything that we do. So when it comes to the learning brain, what I've discovered is let's debunk some myths. Okay. So learning has really changed for hundreds of years. We said that the school systems were set up and it was very lecture style. Like you were saying, you go in, you sit down, you feel a little anxious, and, then you get going. So when it comes to learning, we haven't thought about it from the source of the brain. We've thought about it from the source of the learner, where we've gotten things like learning styles. So people, what's your learning style? Well, I'm a kinesthetic learner. I'm a child learner. And neuroscience has now said and proven, hey, there's no such thing. There's no such thing as just one type of learner. Okay. Because we don't learn with one part of our brain. We learn with multiple parts of our brain. So the interesting parts, so I'll take you on a quick little journey. I'll take the listeners through a quick little journey. Okay. So if you imagine that there's a piece of information and your information comes from your experiences, from your external environment, you think about something entering into the sort of the front of your forehead. Imagine a small little spaceship going right into the front of your forehead, and that ship is carrying some new knowledge. The first place that it's going to enter through is that front part of your brain. It's called the prefrontal cortex. And that's really your executive center. That's where everything goes through and kind of gets divided off. Then we're going to take a travel. Every sense except for smell, which I don't have the reasons for, but every sense except for smell goes through a small part of the brain, about the size of a small plum, called the thalamus. And what the thalamus does is it acts as your dispatcher or your relay center. And it says, okay, this is what this is. It goes to this sensory system. Or this is what this is. It goes to this sensory system. So, and there's more and more involved in this as far as, where we're going and where, because you can learn motor skills, you can learn communication skills, and there's all different sorts of, parts of the brain that are going to play a part in that. So when we look at that, old statistics that say, oh, well, we only use about, 20% at most of our brain every day. And my response to that is, well, can you imagine what the world would look like if everybody only used 20? I think that's where they got, the zombie movies from, because that's what it would look like. So there is a lot going on when we're learning something new. But to your point and to what I was saying, the part that says no thank you, the part that says I'm not so sure about this, is your emotional center.
Okay.
And your emotional center is that part where, and this is really cool because it's, for instance, when you meet somebody for the very first time, the brain does this. It looks at that person and goes, okay, do I want to fight them? Do I want to mate with them? Am I indifferent to them? Or do I need to run away from them? So when you think that those are your instincts, and then you translate that to a new learning experience, well, those instincts still come to life.
So all that happens on a subconscious basis, because I don't think you're consciously aware that your brain is going through selection and sorting process.
Not even close. And it's, when you think about the way that the brain, think about your name. Okay. This is a really simple example. Think about your name. Now, when your brain chunks information together. And this is a really cool thing about learning, is that when you chunk things together, you just compact them into, easier storage spaces. So when you tell somebody your name, you're not spelling out your name every time. You're not going, oh, my name is Lauren. No, you say, my name is Lauren. Because your brain has got the information of the letters and has put that together so it's more compacted. And that's what your brain is constantly doing when you're learning. It's trying to chunk things together, but it's going through all of the years of experience that you've got to see where can I find something that makes sense that I can put together with. Okay. So a lot going on. And then we've got memory, and that's a whole... Yeah, memory is a whole other beast.
Okay. So we now understand the neuroscience of the brain. Now we talk about the piracy aspect. Now, when I think of pirates, growing up, I used to hear bedtime stories of, Long John Silver, Blackbeard. And then I even got interested in pirates at one time because I researched them and I found that they were actually like the first entrepreneurs back in the day, up until when the British government decided to outlaw them because they were making way more money than the British government was. And so they now decided to say, you guys are outlaws, you guys are pirates, essentially. You're not doing what we sent you guys out here to do. So you say the learning pirate is supposed to be someone who's, taking advantage of something that they're not actually supposed to know, right? Piracy in terms of like taking the, what I call it, the advanced, or what I call it, the side approach to doing something to getting a better result. So now talk a little bit more about how you apply this advantage to learning in a corporate perspective. Take, for example, for some of your corporate clients or some of your entrepreneurial clients who need to learn information rapidly because their jobs and their income are based on their ability to learn quickly, understand what they learn, and apply that to whatever they're doing.
It's interesting because one of the core values of Learning Pirate is patience. Okay. Because I think that people forget that you don't just learn instantly. It's not an instant, you can learn something simply, how to pour a glass of water or something, that's only limited skills. When we're entering into an environment where there is a lot of pressure, and obviously we're looking at the return on investment for learning, what clients need to understand, and what, my clients through the education have learned, is that you're investing in something that at first does not have tangibility. Okay. You can't necessarily see or feel or touch learning in the sense. But once that is implemented and once it's encoded into the brain, that's when you get to see it. And that's when you get your ROI back. So I'll give you an example. There was a client that I was working with. They had a very difficult situation. They were going through a divestiture. It was very ugly. There was a lot of liability, and they had less than 8 months to separate from their former companies. And they had decided that they were going to implement a new ERP system to take over their operations. And so they had bought this new technology, and then they realized, we have no one who knows how to use it. So we need to find people who can help us and train us and do that. So I was called in. I'm not a technology expert, but I have worked in the tech sector. So I was called in as the L&D specialist to put together a learning plan to help them be completely separate from the other business within a very short period of time. Now, what I did was to very strategically, again, when I design a course now, when there's urgency, I'm really using those fundamentals of neuroscience to understand what can I put together, what do the learners already know, how is this going to have the most impact, what the end goal is. Now with them, we decided, that it was going to be very well worth it for me to sit in and model and shadow everything that was going on from an implementation stance and work with their people and my people to really put together a solid training plan.
Okay.
And what happened, we put together something beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And what we were looking at is that there were 20 people who needed to be trained. This was in their IT sector. And they were looking to hire 5 more.
Okay.
And halfway through the project is that, do you know what? We're going to go through, we're going to stop what we're doing right now. We're going to move forward with something else. And I stopped and said, okay, I respect your decision. I respect your business decision. But that being said, so tell me, what's going to happen to those 20 people who don't know how to do their jobs when October hits? And I said, now what? I said, because you're unionized, so that adds another layer of complication. So, and they're waiting out their pensions. They're not going to go anywhere. So you're going to have 20 people who are frustrated because they can't do anything and they become incredibly disengaged. And then on top of it, you're going to have 5 new people that you're going to be bringing in, who, as opposed to being part of a team of 25, 5 people are going to be doing the work of 25. So I really sat back and said, I would like you to think about the strategy a little bit more, because people make decisions based out of fear. And this is, I noticed they were doing. They said, we want a safety net. We want to insure. And I said, I respect that decision. But you can't, when you're talking about your business and you're talking about your human capital, take a moment and decide. And they went with their safety net. And less than 3 months later, I get the call, which is, we really need you back. We need you. We understand. I think it's because they need to understand a little bit better the process of how this works. And they felt so safe with this these guys are going to be here, but then those guys are going to leave. And my initiative was not just to create a training activity for their people, but I wanted to create what I call a training legacy, a learning legacy, which is you're not only learning what you need to learn for when you need to, but you're able to pass it on. You're able to keep growing it. You're able to have a living document where you're learning and you're growing, and the legacy continues when those people walk out the door. This is a big problem that we've seen in business in the past 25 years.
Yeah.
In 2008, when we had all the recessions, people were being laid off in vast numbers, and the knowledge was going with them. And all that learning was lost because there was no legacy to pass it on.
Yeah.
So that's probably the best example I can give you of the value of choosing the right learning strategy and listening to people who are professionals in the work that we do.
I love that story. And it resonates with me because when I was working corporate in New York City, there was a point where a lot of people, left for better opportunities because, the market had recovered in like 2013, 14, and there were just more room to get finance people. So you find a lot of people left, and that learning that they had gained over the 3, 4, 5 years that they had been there, there were some things that were automatic to a lot of people that were just not known by everybody else. And there was no way to codify and package that and say, hey, you know what, for the next person that comes in, you can just walk in and plug and play, and you know what, things will go on. So that was lost. So I realized that, you're right. There is a deficiency in every company's learning and developmental plan and process. So what other ways can, learning experts in companies like L&D leaders like you were in a company before, what ways can they improve their learning and training systems so that they will not fall into the trap of, we train somebody, that person walks out the door, and then we have to train another person. And of course, it's going to take longer time to ramp up the person to get up to speed.
Yeah, and that's a big complaint is that people are worried that when they train their people that they are going to take that knowledge and walk out the door, but it's not because they got that knowledge, it's because there's something else happening within that environment. So when my greatest, something that I would love for young entrepreneurs as well is, like I was saying, is don't look at learning as an activity that you just do when you need it. Okay. In my ideal world, entrepreneurs would be building learning into their business plans right from the very beginning.
Okay.
So that's how you build the legacy. So that's number one, is start to consider how learning is going to be part of your business. And it's not just for training, and it's not just for, the skills and knowledge aspect of it. But learning really is the greatest stimulation and the best way to keep your brain healthy. So really giving a value to not only your business, but you're valuing the people. Like, we have to remember that we're working with human capital. Not all about computers and money. It's about humans that are doing all the work. So my first, like I said, is start looking at learning as more of a legacy tool rather than a function. So that would be my first advice to clients and to people out there who are leading teams. The next would be to recognize that you are dealing with humans. You're dealing with humans, and there's a lot of myths out there as to how we were learning before. Be open to understanding that if you're very engrossed and you're very valued in the work that you do, then you should logically understand that the brain is the key to learning.
Okay.
So learn as much as you can. I wouldn't say go to the extent as I do. I've now become, the subject matter expert, and it took me 3 years to do it. But learn from people like me who can transfer those skills to you. So learn, how can we help you redesign your programs to make them even more effective, make them more efficient. And then really do your due diligence when it comes to choosing a training plan or a learning plan that's going to work best for your business.
Okay.
And really be conscious of the fact that, people talk about micro training and very doses. And quite honestly, there's not much a brain can learn in a matter of a few minutes and then actually hold on to it. And the thing is, so I would say when people are, when people who are looking for learning initiatives or training interventions, I would very much be questioning their vendors as to their methodologies, but I would definitely question retention.
Okay.
What are those methods that you're using to ensure retention? Because retention is really what it's all about. Yeah. And so retention and retrieval are the words that you really want to question. And if they don't have answers for that, then how are you supposed to accomplish your end goals? So from that level, I think those are my best sort of top three tips and advice is stop looking at training as an activity or a function, integrate it into your business and recognize the value not only to your business, but to the humans who are working for you. And really make really good decisions and ask the right questions when you are, trying to choose a solution.
Okay. And on this topic also now, when we're talking about training, I don't want to speak on just the technical aspects of training. I want to talk about, other aspects of training that could be beneficial to employers and entrepreneurs and thought leaders, but they are not consciously thinking about it. Like, take, for example, something like, being able to think entrepreneurially, even though you're working in a corporate environment, being able to have better communication skills. A lot of companies, they touch on it, but they don't kind of focus on it. So what about, other training exclusive of or outside of, the technical skills that will make the professional be a better professional?
That's a really great question. And, it's a really hot question right now because we're talking about communication and leadership and soft skills and all of those things. What we're really dealing with when it comes to those topics is we're really looking at behavioral change.
Okay.
And, I'm very transparent. So I can say to you right now, it's the hardest one to accomplish.
Okay.
Once you get past a certain age, once you're past 35, your personality is very much set in, and those pathways that the neurons in your brain have created, they're very strong. So in order to create new pathways, you have to work very hard at it. And again, this was something that I experimented with myself. through various techniques. How can I be a better leader? What does it mean to be a better leader? Well, if I can't focus for more than a few minutes at a time, if I can't actively listen and respond appropriately to what somebody is saying to me, if I can't be sympathetic to the people in front of me, then I can't do all those other things. Now, what I will say, there are so many vendors out there who are doing these types of trainings. And when it comes to my fellow L&D people, I don't see anybody as competition. I see them as allies. We need to be learning from each other. We need to be leveraging each other's strengths. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to those skills, I would say, if there's a training company that is just focused and they've got professionals and experts on just leadership, mm-hmm. look at them first, because you might have a larger company they'll have tech, they'll have communication, they'll have soft skills, but are they really experts in every single one of those? Mm. So find the experts and then work the program out from there. But for everyone who's listening and you're here from me, you can do some research on it. Behavioral change is very difficult. We're dealing with the internal structure of your brain, mm-hmm. And changing the person that you've been for a very long time. Mm. So I think that would be my word of caution, is that it's absolutely possible. There's different methodologies depending on what it is that you're looking to accomplish. Mm-hmm. And be ready, like my story, be ready to be challenged and frustrated and wanting to give up. I can tell you, if you stick with it, it really is one of these things that pays off in so many different ways. Mm. Because the one beautiful thing about learning is you can feel it. Mm. You feel learning gives you a vibrational change. It gives you a chemical change in your body that produces a feeling. And that feeling is worth chasing. Yeah. It is. It makes you feel wonderful.
Nice.
And fun. That's my other thing. You'll never come to a session of mine where I'm lecturing or whether I am, just up there talking too much. Fun is a huge part of the work that I do, and hence the pirate part as well. Yeah. That's, the tagline to Learning Pirate is merging the science of learning with the whimsical. And that's me. You come into a training session or a workshop or whatever it is I'm doing, be prepared to laugh, to yar, to get hands-on, and to walk out knowing that you've learned something.
Nice. So as we start to wind down the show, you've mm-hmm. been an entrepreneur, you've lived in Japan, you've lived in Australia, you're born and raised in Canada. Tell us a little bit more about why you decided to make the GTA the hub of your business. Why did you decide to found your company in the GTA and then to reach out to companies in this area as well as to the world?
There's the fastest answer to that is there's no place like home. For all the years that that I was traveling, I left Toronto when I was 19, and I think at most I would come back for six months to 8 months, and then I'd be gone again, and I would come back, and this is my home, and this is where I grew up, and to see how business has been expanding in Toronto, to see how we've become a mecca, and the world is now paying attention to what's happening here is wonderful. Mm-hmm. We have ingenious young entrepreneurs working all over this city, coming up with brilliant ideas. And it's so important for me to obviously support the global community, but to also be representative of supporting my home team, if you will. So that was really important to me, is helping the businesses within my community in Toronto. But I also wanted to be around to share what I have learned and to pass on my knowledge to the next generation of entrepreneurs.
Okay, nice. And looking at, as a startup in the Toronto areas, are there any programs, any tools or anything specific that can help other startup entrepreneurs or other young entrepreneurs that are launching businesses in this area to succeed and to grow?
One of the best sort of tools, if you will, that I found was, a lot of young entrepreneurs, they find themselves working out of Starbucks or various coffee shops or libraries, and that's all well, but what I would suggest is there are small workspaces that are popping up. Mm-hmm. And I'm actually, I'm in one right now as we're chatting. And the value of the interaction with various people on a day-to-day basis, the value of people doing so many different things around you to give you perspective on what you're doing, and then to join a community where everyone is building their businesses and has an ability to help one another.
Okay.
It is absolutely phenomenal. So I'd say, you're going to meet random people when you're working out at, when you're working at the coffee shop or whatnot, but to be part of a community and workspace where you've got so many different brains and so many different businesses and perspectives, it's the best tip that I can give is don't isolate yourself. Take advantage of the brain power that's around you.
Great. And my final question for the show before we wind up is, what advice do you have for people that are trying to start up or starting up and are struggling with their business and trying to find their first client, second client, trying to just, get that foothold and say, yes, this business that I'm thinking of starting or that I have started is viable and I think it's something that can go the distance. What's some words of wisdom for someone in that situation?
I think, it was something that I just learned myself, which is you're really great at what you do. But there's going to be things that you're not so great at. Don't focus on those. Don't worry about what you can't do. Focus on being wonderful at what you can do. That itself will sell. If you can articulate what you do, and if you can actually show people the value in what you do, then don't take your time and your energy. I'll give you the quick example. Social media is not really a thing with me. I just joined Twitter. It's like I feel like I feel like I'm the dinosaur of Twitter. And I would, it's something that gave me a little bit of anxiety because I don't really know much about the social media. And then I thought, well, I can sit here and stress about it and think about it for days on end, or I can put all my focus and power into the thing that I do really great. And by doing that, I've met people like you. I have met, wonderful people who can really own in that. And through those interactions with these wonderful people, I'm finding those who can help me. Social media, who can help me with the things that I'm not so great at. So my best advice to the young entrepreneurs is don't get, like what they say is don't sweat the small stuff. You'll earn the money, you'll be able to buy the small stuff. Focus in on what you're great at.
Great. And with that said, we're at the end of the show. Lauren, it's been a pleasure talking to you for the past 45 minutes, learning your story, getting your words of wisdom, and of course, understanding how we can be better learners and better entrepreneurs by understanding the way the brain learns. So thanks for coming on to share your story with us and the rest of the listeners on the GTA Business Titans podcast.
Thank you so much. And I'd say yar for now.
That's it, people. Another fantastic episode of the GTA Business Titans podcast. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the podcast today and got some great info out of it, don't be stingy. Share with a friend and leave a review on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Podbean, or wherever you're listening to this podcast right now. Also, if you need any help with your online marketing needs, feel free to reach out to me at www.odogwu.com. That's www.odogwu.com. Or you can email me on info at odogwu.com. Or you just hit me up on this GTA Business Titles podcast website and I'll be sure to respond to you. We help local businesses get more leads and sales from the internet using tools like Facebook advertising, Instagram ads, landing pages, website creation, online funnels, and so much more. So if you want to turn clicks into customers, there's only one name to call in the GTA, and that's Chiodogwu at www.odogwu.com. Till next time, guys. Be a titan, be great, make something great happen in your life today. Bye.